When King David was nearing the end of his life, he called his son Solomon to him. And he said to him, "My son, when I was young, I had a dream. I dreamed that I was walking through a field and came upon a ladder. And I climbed the ladder and found myself in another Yerushalayim, another Jerusalem, like my city, but unlike my city. And it seemed to me that everything was made of gold. And as I walked towards the center of the city, I came upon a great temple, all made of gold. And there a figure came to meet me. It was our father Abraham, and he took me through the temple and he showed me everything. And I knew then that it was my task to build this temple. And I came down from that ladder to my own Jerusalem. And I knew that I must build a temple to reflect the temple I had seen in the heavenly realms. But alas, my son, much has happened in my life, and I am old, and it falls now to you to build the temple." Solomon listened to his father very carefully, and he committed everything King David said to memory. And after the great king passed away, Solomon became king in his place and began construction of the great temple. And all was well, and all went quickly and easily until it came to the building of the altar, the carving of the altar out of stone, because Solomon knew that no metal object or tool could be used on the altar. And he came to a stop. He didn't know what to do, how to proceed. Now, Solomon had a wise and faithful servant by the name of Benayahu, and Benayahu told him that he had heard of a creature called the Shamir, no bigger than a grain of wheat. The Shamir was able to cut through mountains, through the hardest granite and stone, and somehow leave no damage except for the very sharp incision it made. Well, Solomon wanted the Shamir so he could build the altar, and he said to Benayahu, "Fetch me this Shamir so we can build the altar to our holy temple." But Benayahu could only shrug. "I do not have it, king. It resides in the kingdom of the demons." Now Solomon was a magician, and very wise in the ways of that magical realm. And with his ring, with its seal inscribed with the name of God upon it, he invoked 3 demons from the realm of the demon kingdom, and they appeared before him, snarling and hissing. "What do you want, king? Why have you bound us to you?" they cried. And Solomon said, "I have bound you to me because I want the Shamir, and I understand you have it, and I want you to give it to me so that I can build the altar of the holy temple." Oh, even the mention of the temple and its holiness was too much for the demons, and they cringed and shrank away from the king. "We do not have it, king," they said. "It resides with our king, our demon king, Ashmodai. He has the Shamir." "Well, how can I find him? How can I acquire it?" "Oh, well, he is not easy to find, king." "But you are bound," Solomon said, "and you must tell me the truth." So the demons told him. "He lives at the bottom of the dark mountains, and there he keeps a cistern full of water, which he keeps sealed with his own special seal. Every evening he comes to drink from the cistern, always checking to see that no one has tampered with his seal. You will find him there in the evenings, drinking." "Good," said Solomon. "I release you. Go back to your demon realm. And they did. And Solomon called Benaiah to him, and he gave him a heavy chain, the links of which had the name of God inscribed upon them. And he gave him his own ring with his seal and the name of God inscribed upon it. And he gave him some cotton wool and a flask of wine. And he told Benaiah what he was to do. And Benaiah gathered 3 of the strongest men he knew, and together they traveled some distance to the dark mountain. And there they found the cistern with Ashmodai's seal upon it, and they climbed up in the trees to wait. And true to what the demons had said, Ashmodai came out of the shadows in the evening, and he looked around, and he went to his cistern, and he checked the seal to see that no one had tampered with it. And he opened the cistern, and he drank his full. And then he closed the cistern, resealed it, and disappeared again into the shadows. As soon as he was gone, Benaiah and his men came down, and they bored a hole in the cistern, and all the water poured out onto the land. And then they took the wineskin, and they filled the cistern up with wine. And they took the cotton wool, and they plugged up the holes and covered the holes with mud and clay, so no one would know that the cistern was ever tampered with. And then they went back up in the trees to wait until the next evening. And true to form, the next evening, Ashmodai again crept out from the shadows and looked around, and then went to his cistern and opened it and reached in to drink. What is this? A gift, a blessing. And he drank. He drank again. And he drank again, and he drank again, until he had drunk all the wine in the cistern and was unconscious on the ground. As soon as Ashmodai passed out, Benaiah and his men ran to him, and they bound him with the chains on whose links were engraved the name of God. When Ashmodai roused himself from his drunken stupor and realized that he was in chains that he could not break, he fell into a fury, and he cursed and spat and hissed, but none of it did any good, because Benaiah had on his finger Solomon's ring with the seal and the name of God upon it, and by the ring he commanded Ashmodai to come with them. And so they began the journey back to Jerusalem. And on the way, Ashmodai saw a wedding, and he began to weep. And later, he saw a man arguing with a shoemaker to give him a pair of shoes that would last him for 7 years. And he began to laugh. And on the way, they met a blind man. And Ashmodai showed the blind man the right path to take to get where he wanted to go. And on the way, they met a man who boasted that he was a magician, a great magician, and Ashmodai spat at his feet in scorn. Eventually, they got to Jerusalem and to the palace, and King Solomon decided he was not going to see Ashmodai right away, but instead they put him in a high-walled garden and kept one of his feet chained with the chain that had God's name engraved upon it. Now Ashmodai was a fearful-looking creature, tall as a giant, with huge wings and black cock feet. Anyone who looked at him, even the strong men that Benaiah had brought with him, anyone who looked at him grew afraid. But Solomon set up guards around the garden so he could not escape, even if he was able to remove the chain from his cock foot, which he was not. And Solomon told his guard, he said, "Tell Ashmodai, king of the demons, that I cannot see him today. I have drunk too much." And the guard didn't want to speak with Ashmodai, but his king had commanded it, and he went and he said, "Ashmodai, king of the demons, my king Solomon, bids me tell you that he cannot come to you, for he has drunk too much." And Ashmodai took 2 stones from the ground, and he took one stone and he placed another on top of it. And the guard went to tell King Solomon what had happened, and King Solomon just laughed, and he said, "He is telling you that I need to drink more wine." And the next day, King Solomon told the guard, "Tell him that I have eaten too much and have fallen asleep, and I cannot see him." And again the guard approached quite fearfully, but he approached, and he told Ashmodai that the king could not see him because he had eaten too much and had fallen asleep. And this time Ashmodai went to the 2 stones, and he removed the one from the other. And the guard went and reported this to King Solomon, who again laughed and said, "He is telling you I should not eat too much." On the 3rd day, Ashmodai was brought before the king. "What is wrong with you, king?" Ashmodai hissed. "Is it not enough that you are king of all the worldly realms? Do you want my realm as well? You cannot own the world, king. What is mine, and if you try to take it from me, the only thing you will get is your grave." But Solomon looked at the demon calmly, and he said, "Before I speak to you, tell me, what did it mean when you were on your way here and you saw a wedding and you wept?" "Well, I am sentimental," Ashmodai said. "And when I saw the wedding, I knew that the bridegroom would not last 7 days." "And what about the shoemaker? What about the man wanting shoes to last him for 7 years? Why did you laugh?" "Well, he would not even have those shoes for 7 days. He would lose them." "And the blind man?" Solomon asked. "Well, he is one of the hidden holy ones. Even a demon must respect him. I had no choice but to show him the path." "And what about the magician?" Solomon asked. "Well, he was no magician. He was a charlatan. If he had been a magician, he would have known that under his very feet was a treasure. He knew nothing. He is not powerful, like you are, king, like I am. Now tell me what you want of me and release me." Solomon told Ashmodai, "I want the Shamir. I must build the altar to the holy temple, and I need the Shamir, for I may not use any metal upon the stone." Even at the mention of the holy temple, Ashmodai cringed. "You have the Shamir, I am told," King Solomon said. "Now give it to me and I will let you go." "Oh, king, you know nothing. I do not have the Shamir, but I know where it is, and I can tell you how to get it. If I do that, on my oath, you must release me." And Solomon agreed. "Tell me where it is, and know that you are bound by truth, and I will release you." And Ashmodai told him. "At the top of the mountain, where I live, is the white eagle. She holds the Shamir. It is so powerful, she uses it to cut through mountains to make canyons, and in the canyons grow trees which bear a special fruit, and with that fruit she feeds her young. If you want the Shamir, you will have to take it from her. And for that, you must be clever indeed. Now I have told you all I know. You are on your oath to release me." And King Solomon, who never broke an oath, even to a demon, did release Ashmodai, who vanished and returned to his realm in the demon kingdom. So King Solomon once again called on his faithful and wise and true servant Benaiah, and he told him where the Shamir was. And Benaiyahu went by himself, and he hiked up the top of the mountain, and there he saw the eagle's nest. And he carried with him a pane of glass, and he put the glass over the nest, and he retreated behind a boulder to watch what would happen when the white eagle returned. And the white eagle returned and could not reach her young. She could see them through the glass, but she could not reach them. And so she went to fetch the shamir that would cut through the glass. And when she returned, Benaiyahu stood up from behind the stone where he was hiding, and he screamed and he yelled and he thrashed around, and she was so frightened that she dropped the shamir and flew off, and he was able to grab it up and put it in his pocket. He removed the pane of glass, for he would never want to keep a mother from her young. And down the mountain he went, back to King Solomon, and he presented him with the shamir, and with that tool, the holy altar in the very center of the holy temple in the holy city of Jerusalem was built. With the help of the demon king, Ashmodai.